Cluck. The following is a WTC production.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today in the news, we talk about the Trump trial. The verdict is in. Trump is guilty, but of what exactly? Will the USA have his first ever outlaw president? We'll break that down for you guys and talk about why this trial is so important to the failing Biden-Harris administration. It's all this and more on the What the Cluck podcast, episode 2. Let's balk about it.
Well, hey, it's been a crazy week here at the Coop. For those of you who don't know, we broadcast out of East Texas, which has been experiencing some crazy weather recently.
It's so crazy. You might say it could have almost overshadowed some big stuff coming out of New York lately.
Yeah.
But before we get into stuff in New York, the weather here in East Texas has also brought out all of these crazy bugs, which have just eaten me alive lately. And you actually recorded a video of it the other day. It's crazy.
I did.
Eat.
We were outside and I saw it happen.
Yeah. So we're going to play a video of it for you here real quick, just so the people who aren't from Texas, if you don't know, bugs down here are psycho.
So in the national news, the big story of the week was the Trump trial.
Convicted on all 34 counts. Should be impossible, you would think. Well,
I don't know. If the prosecution did a great job of presenting facts of the 34 examples of him violating the law.
Yeah.
And if they did that flawlessly, beyond a reasonable doubt, then I don't know how they could have come to any other conclusion that he was guilty.
Yeah. It is just kind of impressive, though, given the fact that, I don't know, there still isn't a reason that's been given for, or like an actual, like, what law he broke, necessarily.
What are you talking about? I mean, a grand jury indicted him on 34 counts of...
Oh, of course, it was.
Well, you know, he did things like, well, he had a bookkeeper who put down a journal entry for a payment made to his lawyer as a legal expense.
Oh, okay.
And he shouldn't have done that because he was really paying a porn star to not talk about their sexual experience together.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense because that's, oh, wait. Hold on. I don't think that's a criminal, necessarily. It says right here in Google. It's not criminal.
Oh. So it's not a criminal offense to have sex with a porn star?
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Because, they spent a week with Miss Stormy herself on the witness stand talking about that event.
Well, okay, so I'm looking at some of the stuff here, actually. Pulled up some of the stuff that they brought against him. So apparently, and this is all stuff that I guess makes sense to convict him of. Apparently, he had over 30,000 emails deleted from his federal server. He was on the Jeff Epstein list. He let the Attorney General continue to allow an invasion of our border. Definitely done insider trading. Has sold a lot of stuff to Chinese, to people from the Chinese Communist Party. And
Wait a minute. All this came out in the trial?
Oh wait, no, just kidding. This is stuff that other people in politics have done. So obviously Hillary Clinton deleted 30,000 plus emails, and it's under Biden, who we've had to deal with the open border crisis, and Pelosi's famous for her insider trading, and selling specific access and documents to the Chinese. I mean, that's another Biden era thing. So but yeah, no trial for those guys. So, but Trump, man, paid off a hooker or porn star. I mean, it's the level of like double standard here is mind-boggling, and I think it shows in the results that we're seeing after the conviction. I mean, once they convicted him of, I don't know what the numbers are, like updated numbers are, but I know last night after they announced he's been convicted of all these crimes, and he's set to, I think they're set to like take him into custody or something 4 or 5 days before the RNC, where they...
Well, actually what that is, it's on January 11th. July 11th. January, whole different story. July 11th, he has to appear in court for his sentencing. So he will be back in court in front of the judge to find out what are going to be the implications of his conviction. So will he be going to jail? Will he have to pay money? Will he be locked up in his home for 5 years? What is it?
Mm-hmm.
And in New York, they give the judge very wide latitude on how to sentence somebody in this case. So nobody really knows. It would be all conjecture. If you're hearing anything out there about, oh, this is what the judge is going to do, it's just somebody's guess. At this point, we don't know. He could let him off with a slap on the wrist, maybe a financial fine, and maybe so many hours of community service, or he could literally put him away for a period of time. And you know what? All you hear about in the news right now from mainstream media like CNN and MSNBC is the...
There's a party going on right here, a celebration to last throughout the years. So bring your good times and your laughter too. We gonna celebrate your party with you. Come on now. Celebration.
They are just so excited about this conviction and his pending judgment against him. So it's just crazy because the thing that really impressed me through the entire trial that lasted for 5 weeks was the fact that this was a case that should have never been brought. Now, you're going to hear a lot of people say that, especially Trump. Trump has said this a lot. And I am not a mouthpiece for Trump. Yeah, I've got my issues with the former president, just like many people do. But facts are facts. I'm really into facts. So what was the fact, the truth of the situation? And the truth of the situation is that he went before a grand jury who indicted him on these 34 counts. Now, these 34 counts were all misdemeanors, so they were pretty minor issues. But the prosecutor in New York wanted a federal crime because they wanted there to be more weight behind it. They wanted more sting. They wanted to be able to lock him up. You can't get locked up for a misdemeanor. But you can for a federal crime. So they said to the grand jury, here are these 34 misdemeanors that we want to bring him to court for, and we want it to be a federal crime, because what we're saying is that he committed these misdemeanors in light of trying to commit a federal crime.
And I've heard too that with the misdemeanors, and now I'd have to do a little bit more research on this, so feel free to fact check me in the comments. But I've heard from a couple of sources that a lot of those 34 counts, they're almost like duplicated. So it'll be like they'll just kind of like shuffle some things around a little bit, and it'll be for dumb stuff. It'll be, like, oh, he paid this lady hush money, and because he didn't want to talk about his previous affair, and then like the next count is and they did it with a pen that they took from someone else in a department store, and and it's just like all these like really, I mean, I think it was Liz Wheeler or oh gosh, I don't remember, somebody on Twitter that I was reading about, and they said that in New York, criminals just get to do whatever they want right now. I mean, New York City specifically has a huge crime problem at the moment, and I mean, if this was anybody else other than Donald Trump, they probably would just get away with it right now.
Yeah.
Under the current, I believe the DA is Alvin Bragg, I think is his name.
Yeah.
But because it's Trump, they're just throwing the kitchen sink at him right now and just seeing like what will stick. Meanwhile, people in New York are having to deal with like just record high crime. It's like, but how much money have we dumped into this in having all of these lawyers and all these prosecutors and just the whole thing, all the money that we dumped into this that could have been put to hiring more police officers and cleaning up the streets and all this stuff. And so I think I think most people are seeing through this. I feel like most people are looking at what's happening to Trump, and they just realize it's just a scam right now. Like the people that are genuinely watching him just be just destroyed right now, realize like, wow, if the government can do that to Trump, like what can they do to me when I don't have billions of dollars backing me?
Well, and I think that's the thing that I've been noticing, just watching social media this last week, and people responding to what was coming out of the courtroom. And there's definitely a sense that people were feeling sympathetic to Donald Trump because of what was being done to him. Like people recognized that this was really a I don't know what you'd call it, but just a
kangaroo court,
but just something that's very unfair. That and people, I think, are definitely starting to feel that ultimately he was being prosecuted not because of January 6th. He wasn't being prosecuted because he, drowns puppies in the river. He wasn't being prosecuted for his flaming tweets, but he's being prosecuted because he dared to try to run against Biden a second time. That's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think the DA and I think the people involved in that case, and I definitely think the people in the Biden administration, and definitely people on The View or CNN or the like, would argue very differently. No, that he is an evil man. He's bad. As people like to say, orange man bad, and he just needs to be stopped at all cost. But the reality is, he dared to try to run for president again, and we were going to stop him at all cost.
Well, and that's an interesting point that you brought up. The CNN, The View, establishment media, and I would agree with you for the most part that establishment media has really been the driving force behind this narrative of orange man bad. And like, look at all the crazy things he did. He paid somebody money. Can you believe it? But I was watching, this morning, again on Twitter, I was watching, or X, I guess we have to call it X now. I think it technically changed the URL.
Yeah, we don't need Elon coming after us. Let's get it right.
Yeah, the website formerly known as Twitter. But he was not him. Anyways, in this clip, CNN has a senior political analyst or something on, and he talks about the fact that what happened in this case was, one, unprecedented because of the unconstitutionality, if that's a real word, of what happened and what took place. And you could tell, some of the other anchors on CNN were kind of that's not what you're supposed to say. But he's a CNN guy saying this is wrong. And so you're starting to see media even kind of round that corner and say, yeah, maybe what's happened, the ramifications of this go further than Trump. Because now, and while I don't want to see this happen, but now what happens when Trump wins? And now what if he's just like, screw it, you guys have been doing this to me for years, it's payback time. And then we do the same thing back, and it's like, there's part of me that's like, I would, there's the side of me that's like, yeah, let's get a win in. But then that's just a tit for tat kind of thing, and that's the kind of stuff that will,
I do think
take us further to civil war.
I do think the one difference, though, is that they're coming after him and they don't have a case. So let's just be clear, and I'm sure you've heard this, is that there were multiple prosecutors who were handed this case over the years and said, hey, do we have something? Can we take this to trial? And they were all like, yeah, no. One after the other passed on it. As these DAs were elected and, somebody said, hey, what about this? They're like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. It's not a winnable case. There's really no case here. But now, it's crunch time. He's running against our guy. And so what can we do to bring him down? Well, let's go ahead and do this and try to push it through. So anyways, I think that there's that sense that a lot of it has just been an attempt at keeping him really from any opportunity to run for president again, let alone win.
Well, and I'll find the clip and we can post it in the video, but there's this clip that went viral, maybe a week or two ago, of AOC. And she said the quiet part out loud. She was like, yeah, this trial is literally just what are those things called? Ankle bracelet for the Trump campaign. She admitted, yeah, this is just to keep him off the campaign trail. And I think the encouraging thing is seeing last night the fact that he raised so much money after he was convicted. Again, it was like $38 million.
It was $32 million in 10 hours.
Was it?
So
Okay.
I'm sure he's raised much more than that now.
Yeah.
But in the first 10 hours that the website was up, they $32 million, and he said most of that was from small donations. $21 was one thing that they were asking for, and then they had different increments based on they were more response type things. So like, donate 21 if you believe that he shouldn't have been convicted. Donate 47 if you think he's the best president ever, and so on and so forth. And so depending on what people were trying to communicate through their donation, it was those amounts. But there was nobody that just said here's $1 million or here's $5 million. It was small donations, which just shows you, and this I think goes back to what I was talking about earlier, all the stuff on social media about the little guy coming out and saying what's happening to this man is unfair. And so, again, people on the other side think it's completely justified because they're like, he's evil and he needs to be stopped. The majority of Americans disagree. And I think one of the things that stand out in that is that an overnight poll that was done had him up 6 points. Not 6 points over Biden, 6 points more than where he had been prior to the announcement of the verdict.
Yeah.
So at this point, he's taking a noticeable lead in polls, and polls are fickle and polls change. So, you can't necessarily, go to bed on that one. But the reality is that people are done. People see it for what it is, and they're just done. But before we move on, I just really want to stress the point that you mentioned that it was a violation of the Constitution. In the Fifth Amendment, it's very clear that a person cannot be accused of a crime unless it's done through a grand jury. So this grand jury has to be presented the information by the prosecutors and say this was the crime that was committed, and then that grand jury has to say, we agree that there is enough evidence for you to take this person to trial on that issue.
Mm-hmm.
And what we had happen here was he was taken, that information was taken to a grand jury, and they said, here's the 34 counts. Now, all of these are misdemeanors, but we believe that he committed a federal crime, and we'll tell you about that one later.
Yeah.
So will you agree to see that he is brought to trial on these 34 with the promise of a future reveal of a federal crime that was committed? And so they said yes. Then he was arraigned and brought to trial, and he was never told what that federal crime was. To this day, his defense team has no idea what the federal crime was, yet he was found guilty of it.
It's like, please, sir, may I have some information?
This is a direct violation of the Fifth Amendment. And listen to me, whether you like Trump or whether you don't like Trump, doesn't really matter. Would you like to be arraigned and taken to court violating all of the rights that you have as an American? Because that's what happened to this man. Every single American who loves their freedoms and their rights should be concerned by what happened here.
Well, and so that's an excellent point. And I think that's why we're seeing in the polls especially, Trump is up he's gained I think it's something like 29% with with like black and Hispanic voters. And I mean, black voters historically are, people who are having what would you call it? Not faulty run-ins with law enforcement, but unjust run-ins with law enforcement. Oh, we caught you, here doing something. We're gonna book you because of the color of your skin, and or because of some some bias there. And so I think we've seen a lot more people in the black and the Hispanic, the Latino vote switch over to supporting Trump, because they're saying that they're doing this to the same thing. They're doing the same thing to him that they do to us.
Exactly.
And it's gonna be yeah, like you said, polls are fickle, but it's gonna be really interesting to see come October, November, as we get closer to the election. I know I was looking at, it's 538, which is a polling data website.
Okay.
Link down in the comment. They're showing based on the polling data that they've taken since the midterm elections, and New York, historically a D plus, like 26, 27, right? Like Democrat stronghold, similar to California, is now a D plus 8, which is huge.
That is huge.
I mean, even if the state still swings blue come November, that still shows New York is losing right now. The Democrats are losing New York, which is impressive too, because New York lost a lot of people when during 2020 and 2021, as people were moving across the country, and we kind of had the Great Migration. So not only are they losing people, but they're also losing like their demographic. It's those people are turning on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. I think I think the trial did nothing but bolster support for Trump, and I will be so insanely surprised if come November we're sitting here and it's like, oh, Biden won again. Nobody shows up to his events. He's like literally one of the most hated presidents since, Jimmy Carter and maybe Bush Jr. at this point. I mean, it will blow my mind to wake up on January or November 6th and they're like, President Biden, second term. Like, what the Cluck?
It is interesting that you point that out, just how, the tide is turning. And I think that a great example happened a week ago today was Trump is going to the Bronx.
Yeah.
To have a rally. And you brought up AOC. AOC is like basically mocking him, saying, well, why is he going to the Bronx? The Bronx is blue. New York is blue. New York City is blue. New York State is blue. Why is he wasting his time? Oh, you know why? And this is exactly what she said. Go and look for the videos. She said, oh, because he can't go anywhere because he's stuck in New York. And it's funny because people at the rally were asked about that, and they pretty much said she doesn't know what she's talking about. He's coming here because the Bronx is important. We're important. We're a part of America too, and he's here to talk to us and tell us how he's going to do better for us than the current administration is doing. And so what happened? Thousands of people show up.
Yeah, I think they said like it was like 30, 40 plus thousand people.
And it is crazy how many people were there at this event. And again, go back and look at the videos on it. It's amazing. We'll try to link all those down in the comments. But you see him out there, and what does he do? He doesn't come out and threaten them with slavery again. He doesn't come out and then tell them that if they only pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, they could be in a better situation. He tells them how amazing they are and how they are a part of America and a part of the American dream, and that he sees their pain and wants to help them. That message is resonating with Americans, whether they're Hispanic or black, whether they're poor. He's a man of the people, and I think ultimately that's what the left doesn't like.
Mm-hmm.
The establishment doesn't like somebody who's more concerned about the people than about maintaining the status quo.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that's ultimately reflected, kind of moving into our next section here about the Biden-Harris administration. But I mean, how reflective is that of the Democrat Party, and specifically Biden at the moment? I mean, I'm looking at Pew Research here, and it shows his overall approval rating in his fourth term is 37%. And now, I get it. If you go back and look at previous presidents, there is... They have pretty low approval ratings, especially because it's easy to point at when you're having problems. It's easy to point at the guy in charge and be like, well, you're the cause of all my problems. But with Trump, at least during his presidency, right up until COVID, I mean, you were looking at, in 2019, we had one of the best economies we've ever had. I forget where it is. Tim Pool talks about it all the time. But in 2019, or in the Obama era, net income under Obama went down like $1,000. So most people were making $1,000 less every year under Obama than they were under Bush. Under Trump, it went up $4,000. And now under Biden, it's gone down $4,000. And it's based off of the I think it's based off of like the median like income. So that's not just... It's not just that Biden undid what Trump did and brought us back down to the same, like brought us back down to Obama era. It's he undid that and then took us down $4,000. So it's a net loss of $8,000 a year under the Biden-Harris administration. And I don't really know where I'm going with this at the moment. I was trying to just talking about just how out of touch the Biden-Harris administration is. I mean, you just look at the state, the biggest things on people's minds right now, and all of the polls reflect this at the moment, is immigration and the economy, or inflation specifically. And what are the two things that Biden could do to crack down on this? One, start enforcing like strict border policy, right? And then for inflation, I mean, let us drill. Like, let us start fracking again. Like, say, okay, you know what? I get it. Like, this is bad. Where we are right now is bad. So I'm just gonna let anybody have a lease, an oil drilling lease, go to town, get it going as fast as you can. And those things right there, boom, he'd probably win re-election if he did that, because more people would be like, well, hey, yeah, he's, at least his tweets aren't bad,
At least he's nice.
Yeah,
Like an
I
old
mean,
nice grandpa.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of creepy how he smells little kids, and he's probably a pedophile. But I don't know if I can say that on YouTube or not. But
Well, I do think the one thing to point out is that there was that poll done by Reuters that basically said they asked people to identify, are you a Republican or a Democrat, and what's the most important thing for you in this upcoming election, and obviously Republicans and Democrats were different. They had slight differences between what was the most important thing, or let's say the top 20 things. But the number one for both was the economy. So you pointed out the economy is one of the big drivers. The kind of next thing down was extremism. And that one to me is interesting because I'm like, extremism in what? Now that you can take that a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
It could be extremism in, the far left wanting to, like ban your car, ban your stove, ban, certain types of food. Ban,
could be seen as the right, banning abortion. I'm sure that's probably a big one. So
yeah, so that might mean something a little bit different for each side. But then the next one was immigration. So the issue of immigration and our porous borders, big concern for people. The next one down is crime, and I think that's very telling that crime would be next. Obviously, is it tied to immigration? Or is it just issues of just crime in the streets anyways? Is it the issue of people protesting peacefully and burning down buildings or wrecking college campuses? I mean, a lot of issues there, right? And then the one that tied for the spot with crime was war and conflict. So all these issues of us being involved in multiple conflicts around the world. Seems like sometimes we're actually helping to create those problems rather than helping to solve them. So these are kind of the top drivers for what are important to people. But I'm gonna take us into a time capsule and go back a little bit in time. In 1980, 1979, when they were running the campaign, Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter were going at it. Carter was a one-term Democrat president, and the Republican nominee was running against him, and just months before, just what was in the debate. So it was probably just a really short time before the election, 30 days I think. Reagan said in the debate, you just have to ask yourself, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And if you were, you should vote for that man. But if you don't feel like you're better off and you're not happy with, where things are at in the country, then I would like to present myself as an alternative. And so that happened back then, 1979, 1980. Ronald Reagan, very clearly won from Jimmy Carter. It was not a close race. Then we jump forward a decade or so. It's probably about a decade, and George Bush Sr. is running against Bill Clinton, and in their debates, they were talking about a lot of things, and George Bush Sr. was talking about all the good things he had done. But where they really blasted him was on his handling of the economy. People were suffering, prices were going up, and the catchphrase kept getting used over and over again. It's the economy, stupid. You're telling us about all these good things that you're doing and accomplishing, but we we only care about the economy. The economy is what makes a difference in our lives each day. I'm able to take that check that I get from my employer, put it into my account, and have enough money to buy the things that I need to buy. That's why after years and years, it's still the same. What are people concerned about? The economy. When the economy is failing, people are looking for a change. And I think that's what Biden is really suffering under.
Well, yeah. And I mean, and kind of going back to the people on Capitol Hill that are just like totally disconnected from all this. I mean, when you see these guys like, just talking about like, well, the war in the Ukraine is, and like these are Republicans talking about like the war in the Ukraine is like one of the most preeminent things that we have to, that like the United States needs to deal with. And it's like there's people who are struggling to feed their families, like here.
Yeah.
There's stats out there that show that under just the economy the way it is now, and it's been kind of going this way for a while, but definitely the way it is now, the millennial and the Gen Zs are almost 100% guaranteed to never buy a home. Like, yeah. I mean, and that's one of the easiest ways to amass wealth is to own a home, own property. So now you've got in 2 generations now, technically 3 with, I think it's like Gen Alpha or something behind us, who are now looking at everything and they're saying, I can't afford groceries to feed my family, or I can't afford to have a family. Even though I might want to, I can't afford it. The college degree that I was told would make me lots of money was a lie. I can't afford to buy a house. I can barely afford to make bills. I can't really afford groceries the same way I could before. Everything's getting more expensive. But you're telling me that we need to send billions more over to Ukraine, and that is somehow the most preeminent thing I should be worried about right now? Like, that disconnect, I mean, that if that doesn't drive more people, not necessarily to the Republican Party, but just to say, we're not doing this anymore. I mean, I don't know.
And it seems like that's what when you listen to, again, social media, people posting their own videos or people doing man on the street interviews, it really is coming down to that. People are suffering. And when Biden was interviewed recently, which, he doesn't do that very often, because you can't be interviewed with a teleprompter. I guess they could have set him up with a teleprompter and he could just have a lag in his answers, and then he could go over and look and he could be pause. But
you have to sniff too many children to keep it up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. But in that interview, he was asked, what do you say to the people who say, you know what, hey, they're having hard times and it's not easy right now. Mm-hmm. And, what do you say to them? And his response is like, yeah, that's really tough. But you know what? They have money.
It's like, no, clueless.
Yeah.
We're saying we don't.
Well, if we had the money, and his argument is that, well, it's just things cost more now. And so because of corporate greed...
Yeah, why do things cost more now?
Yeah, well, it's all of your policies that have caused prices to go up.
What happens when you print a bunch of funny money and infuse the economy with that?
Yeah, that's really not the issue. The issue isn't that things do cost more, but it's because, guess what? We have states now where it's, minimum wage is $20 an hour for a menial job. And And then on top of it, the cost of getting their products to them so that they can sell them are, have gone up because of higher gas prices, manufacturing prices, all these issues. And so everything just costs more. Businesses can't run at a deficit. Now, they don't understand that in Washington because they run at a deficit. But the reality is you can't do that. And so they have to hike up prices. So all of your failed policies have led to increased prices, and now things cost more. So he is right. Things do cost more. Mm-hmm. But it's not that if he's thinking about those people that are making $20 an hour now, what he doesn't tell you is how many of those people lost their jobs because they were replaced by automation, because it's cheaper to have a machine doing it than somebody making $20 an hour. So many issues there. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is it's the economy, stupid, and it's his failed border policies, that people are just tired of illegals coming in unvetted. We don't know anything about these people. Many of them are criminals, terrorists, and the like. Not all of them. So let's just be fair. They're not all bad people. But it is interesting. I've seen multiple videos where people are coming across the border and they scan and they talk to them, and they're all young men.
Yeah, young military fighting aged men.
Where are the families?
Where are the women and children?
Yeah. Oh, we're fleeing from our country because it's so bad there, and we left our women and children behind.
If only the men of the Titanic knew what to do.
So, failed border policies, crime, that we allow people just to do whatever. I think you pointed out early on in New York, hey, you stabbed somebody with a machete, why don't you go home and have a good day? Oh, you made an agreement with somebody and gave them some money for it. Oh, you're going to jail. Where's the common sense in that? We are letting violent crime go unpunished while we're wasting time on things that just are misdemeanors.
And it makes you wonder. It at least makes me wonder. I mean, it's obviously intentional, but why is it intentional? Like, for what purpose? Is it just so that we can turn our cities into Gotham City? Like, is it literally just like, is it just that? Is it stupidity on the part of these politicians?
What purpose are you talking about?
The purpose of not prosecuting these crimes, right?
Yeah.
Or is it simply just demoralization? Like, if you just beat your serfdom as effectively, that's what they're trying to turn us into, and only have two classes. You have your elites and your serfs. So is it just a demoralization thing then? Is that why we're not? I mean, for me, it's one of those things, you look at it and it doesn't make sense. Because there's certain things that I can understand. Insider trading, yeah, I want to be rich. I want to be wealthy. I understand that. I understand why you would go that route. Or, not prosecuting or not bringing to light any of the Jeff Epstein client list. Like, yeah, if my name's on that list, I don't want that getting out there, so we're not going to touch that.
Is there something we need to know about?
Anyways, but letting the violent crime go unpunished, that one to me, like, I don't follow the logic there. And so I realize this is kind of a tangent, but it's all like it's connected. It's just something that's like, it makes me put on my conspiracy theory hat and be like, what's the reason behind this? Like, why are so many of these cities doing this? Like, what's the purpose behind it?
Yeah, and that's probably for another topic. We could probably,
Another video.
Spend some time really delving into that, because I do think that there's something to be said there. They have verbalized why they want to let criminals out of prison, why they want to let mentally unstable people out of asylums. They've articulated those reasons, and it's definitely something that we could dig into in a different episode. So
Yeah.
Well, so that was the news for the week.
Yep.
And I definitely think that over the next weeks and months, we're going to see the implications of how does all this pan out,
Yeah.
And but as I think about what President Trump said today in his press conference, the final verdict is really going to be issued on November 5th. And so whatever you think about what happened in New York City in this trial, we the people have a voice, and you can think that what happened there was great and was the best thing to happen to justice and liberty in the United States ever, or you can think it was the worst thing, the most heinous thing that ever took place. There's going to be people on that scale, one side to the other, but whatever you think, ultimately you have a voice. And on November 5th, and obviously there's early voting in some states, and that starts much earlier, so it's not, we don't need to wait till November 5th. I think one of my favorite lines is, vote early and vote often. Just kidding. One vote per person, that's the way it works, and I'm sorry, but if you're deceased, can't vote. Sorry, we do discriminate in the country.
Gotta tell that to all the Democrats.
Yeah, based on the way things are. If you're no longer breathing, you don't get to vote. But in other words, just I would really challenge people to think about what they've seen transpire here, and take the emotion out of it. It's easy to get very emotional and say, boy, I'm so mad about this person or that person, this administration or that administration, or this congressman or that representative, whatever. I mean, we can get really emotional, and we can feel like democracy is in jeopardy if this person doesn't cease to exist tomorrow. But really, in reality, just stop, take a breath, and ask yourself. I think what Ronald Reagan said is really appropriate. Are you better off? Are you better off, now than you were then? And do you believe that we all have certain rights that need to be protected and safeguarded? And would you want to be in President Trump's shoes if somebody didn't like you? Somebody powerful didn't like you, and they said, you know what, I want to take you down, so I'm going to use the full force of my power to put you away.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate thing, is when it comes time to vote, when it comes time for us to make a decision, you to make a decision. I think it's important for us to look at the country as it is right now and say, is this the country that I want to live in? And I mean, if yes, then yeah, keep voting for the status quo, or actually maybe don't vote. That would be my preference. But if you're looking at the just kind of where things are at, and you're like, this isn't the United States that I grew up in, or the United States that I want to grow up in. I want my kids to grow up in. Then definitely take it to the ballot box. But I would also say, and a lot of, some of the reasons why we started this podcast just in general was to kind of bring more of the element of we're just two guys talking about things that matter to us. We're not Tucker Carlson. We're not Joe Rogan. We're not these celebrities or these people in huge positions of authority. We're just people talking about this. And I think that is something that we've lost kind of as a society. We don't really talk to our neighbors or our friends about this stuff anymore. And so I would also encourage you not to don't just go out and vote, but talk to the people in your life about this. Because I guarantee you, most people are going to have a similar reaction, but after years of just being kind of beat down and told, like, if you don't toe the party line or whatever, if you don't say what's acceptable in the media's eyes, we're gonna beat you into submission. And there's more of us out there who realize this isn't a good place to be. There's more of us out there, I think, than we think.
Well, and
all of us.
And I think you hit on the really important point, is that let's have the dialogue. This is one of the reasons why we started this channel, was to have the dialogue. Now, you don't have to agree with us, and you're entitled to your opinion, and you might watch this because it came up in your feed and you're like, what is this about? And now you follow it because you're just angry and you want to be mad at us and you want to leave nasty comments.
And to that we say thank you for the views.
But the issue is that, and that's fine. That's fine if that's what you feel is the most important. But the thing I would challenge you on is the most important thing should be the conversation. Hear what we're saying. And if we say something that you feel is wrong, and you've got the facts to back it up, well, then share it with us. Challenge us on it. Show us where we're wrong. We want to learn and grow, and we're just challenging other people to learn and grow as well. Mm-hmm. And so, and this is what our country was founded on, was really debate. The founding fathers, a group of men who met and were hammering out a constitution and all the documents and the structure of what this new government was going to look like. Never had happened before. They were making all this stuff up, and there were a lot of disagreements. They did not always come down on the side of like, yep, that you're reading my mind. No, they opposed each other frequently. But they talked about it, they hammered it out, and they came up with what they thought was going to be the most just form of government, and we can still do that today. So talk to your family, talk to your friends, and if you find people that don't agree with you, listen to them.
Yeah.
And then share with them, articulate what it is that you think, and let them hear you and learn from you. And as we do this together, we're all on a journey of growth, maturing as individuals, maturing as a community, as a culture, and as a society. And we can only win when we do that.
Yeah. So we thank you again for watching the video. Like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. I think we're going to be posting to Rumble here soon. We should be starting up over there. So check us out on whichever platform you prefer, YouTube or Rumble. And yeah, we'll catch y'all in the next video.
See you later.
Bye.